So, my videos always start with so. It's okay. People have to understand exactly what's at stake and why it's so important that things happen the way they do. Okay? People need to understand that the Republican agenda, backed by people like Donald Trump, is what's been causing the trouble in the world for all of us. Because they simply refuse to accept responsibility for what they've done, and they don't want anybody else to try and make them be responsible either. And that's why they say in Spanish, nada debe, nada teme, which means if you didn't do anything wrong, you have nothing to worry about. So why are these Republicans so worried? Because the Republicans really are the mafia, backed by the mafia in my country, in the United States. And the equivalent in Mexico would be the priistas and the panistas and basically whoever's in power. But let me explain it to you, because if the Republicans get any kind of foothold again in power, our country's going to go down the crapper. And I'm going to explain to you just how bad it might get. Okay, I'm going to explain it to you in the context of what's happening in Mexico right now, reported in the news about the government being controlled by the mafia. I'm going to try to translate word for word, okay? So, organized crime. Organized crime has extended even to the sale of flowers and chicken. You can't cut a flower or send a flower or sell a flower without paying the mafia. You're ordered to buy chicken from organized crime, and if you don't listen to them, if you don't do what they say, they will do what they did to this guy, which was they broke all the windows in his house and they broke his leg and they broke his arm. And then somehow they expect him to buy chicken from him. So when they went, they even got rid of the guy who was named Misael Montegron. Funny, his name's Misael. And he was supposedly the sub-director of the town security, but he was the guy who was in charge of extorting everybody for the chicken and the flowers. So not only that, but imagine this, another phenomenon that has happened with the organized crime is that they've co-opted all the taxis, or a lot of them, not just in Mexico City, but throughout the country. And when anybody new comes to town, they're ordered to tell them so that the organized crime can go either sell them drugs, or especially if it's a tourist, so they can go do all this weird shit that the organized crime does. But not only that, organized crime has co-opted everything, including Coca-Cola and including other big companies. So I'm reading from right here. Okay, so I'm not making this up. I'm translating. So they asked Coca-Cola for a percentage, and if Coca-Cola didn't agree, Coca-Cola could not sell products within the zone of control of the Familia Michoacana. So that's the name of that organized crime. And so beer and Coca-Cola and other products from big companies are being sold in all of these areas controlled by the organized crime only because they're paying the quota. They're paying the percentage. If they weren't paying the percentage, they wouldn't be able to sell their products here. That's just straight up the way it is. Now, in the year 2020, there were 3,000 complaints from the florists about their business being affected, and they went to the military, they went to the federal police, they went to the Marines, and they went to the Guardia Nacional, that great institution, and nobody helped them. In fact, nobody helped them. And so in protest of these payments that they've been made to give, they tried to go this past August 15th, and they burned the house down of the mayor, this woman named Ana Maria Vázquez Carmona, and it was 300 people who went and burned her house down for being corrupt. And they burned a patrol car and a police station, and they even held municipal police and elements of the state police for being corrupt. And they built fires, and they blocked the access to the town with rocks, and they limited the ability for the Familia Michoacana to do these things, and they stopped it. But that was because everybody got together to stop it. Now, On January 11th of 2022, there were videos that were made showing that these 8 vehicles that were carrying men who were masked and heavily armed with huge guns like 50 caliber machine guns, who decided to patrol the town in broad daylight as a show of force. And there's a video that was grabbed. It was a video that was taped in front of the town hall. Days afterwards, certain policemen were murdered for having gotten taped. They were taped, and so they were murdered. The National Guard in the area, if there are any, also are afraid to enter the area because of the organized crime. So a large part of Mexico City and Mexico State is under control of these people. And if you try and go into these areas, unless you're willing to pay the quota, you're not going to get in. Especially if you're a policeman or you're a National Guardsman, forget it. Don't even go. They're too afraid, or they're bought off. They're part of the problem. So I just thought I'd mention that. Really, what's going on? My purpose of mentioning this is that even entities like Coca-Cola, big beer and beverage companies, and probably Nestle. They didn't mention Nestle in the article, but I imagine if Coca-Cola's paying the quota, Nestle is too. They're all paying organized crime in order to be able to sell their products here. So I wonder, organized crime is backing the Republican movement and the Republican agenda in our country. What does that mean for the future of our country? Is it going to turn into a place like Mexico with a bunch of nutballs running around with, 50 caliber machine guns and sawed-off shotguns blowing people away because they wouldn't buy their chicken or their flowers? I mean, that's just kind of absurd. Can you imagine Donald Trump and a bunch of thugs trying to go around making people buy Trump insignia clothes, and if they don't, they get shot? I mean, that's kind of what's going on in Mexico. And that's the same kind of thing that's happening in our country to a degree because of the Republican control of our country. And the browbeating and the bullying and the invalidating, if you don't accept that the election was stolen or whatever the hell. I mean, give me a break. We just don't need that in our country. And we definitely don't need the Familia Michoacana. And we definitely don't need Donald Trump or MAGA people or election deniers. We need straight up justice, and we need it now. Leopold Richard Bamberger Alavisa is reporting to you from Mexico City.